Thank you for tuning in. This is a quick opportunity to just be able to mention our sponsor, which is Dink Tech and Change for Games. Dink Tech and Change for Games. Yeah, welcome to the news. But this is a quick advertisement thanks for tuning in to this station today. This is a quick advertisement for Dink Tech and Change for Games for the accent elimination business arriving soon in Philippines. We're on our way to Southeast Asia, so that in essence is our business to be able to try to start to develop revenue and then to have a bonus of accountability coaching on top of that. Yeah, that is our little business to be able to start the income flow for the liquid funds that start to roll in to be able to try to develop a liquidation of monetary energy into liquid energy, to then resurface into philanthropy energy as time goes on in our world of Dink Tech and Change for Games as we try to enhance our partnership, process, and strategy. Yeah. So today we're trying to focus a little bit on how philanthropy energy is in essence a pathway to longevity to a certain extent, to a certain degree, and also to be able to try to stop time at the same time, to be able to try to reconfigure time and try to reconfigure the conceptualization of quantum mechanics, quantum computing, which is coming into play, which is something that has been proven recently by the Willow computer chip that has been made by a quantum computer chip that has been made by Google recently, evaluating and releasing certain aspects of the power driven from within that also has to do with spiritual finance. That is something which we've been trying to bring about within spiritual finance, which is something that's sort of coming about within quantum computing that's coming out to the market, the greater marketplace, in the short and the long term. Yeah, to be able to change the whole ecosystem of health, longevity, and things of this nature, to be able to try to live longer, to try to be able to add value to the global philanthropy energy good, to try to add value to people's lives in the short and long term, to try to be able to enhance the process for which people are able to consume not only food and not only health processes, but to be able to keep people healthy and to be able to also have small microscopic developments and insertions that have to do with processes that are the sizes of atoms and being able to develop molecular structures and atom-size building architectures, leveraging quantum computing, which is more so coming into the marketplace upon seeing some research in recent times. Yeah. But also that's what spiritual finance has to do with. In essence, is trying to be able to make the connection today to connect with the essence of spiritual finance and quantum computing, which has to do with an essence of randomness, Quantum computing is an essence of sort of things that are unpredictable and an essence of nature, which has to do with nature, largely with nature, the essence of nature, which is the power of the nature of love, which is the title of this podcast. Yeah. And ultimately, what spiritual finance has to do with is being able to try to conceptualize the feeling of how time organizes with matter and how time and energy and space sort of work together to be able to try to present light in terms of the mindset, in terms of the internal mindset, to be able to find endlessness and eternity within every single second that exists, more or less, because ultimately our experiences typically in time as humans are almost more or less like 1 second at a time. It's kind of like the present moment is that it. That is what it is. It's a series of present moments, more or less, that are strung together to be able to equal humanity and existence and time, ultimately. So if you're able to get deep into your focus and deep into your focus of spiritual finance and spiritual finance energy and spiritual finance contemplation, that in essence is possible to a certain extent to stop time. It's almost like also in the favor of longevity, the essence of longevity, and what Brian Johnson, the past owner of Venmo, the past owner of Venmo, what he did, his mission these days is trying to be able to try to live forever or whatever, but his focus is longevity in essence and trying to optimize longevity. But ultimately, what we've had the ability to be able to try to connect with today is quantum computing and longevity, which corresponds to the essence of the ability to be able to try to align with such things as spiritual finance, because spiritual finance corresponds to aligning energy in a certain fashion that has to do with light correspondence of structured information that actually holds matter in place. The structure corresponding to the mindset of spiritual finance, in essence, all of the things that we've been talking about, more or less over the last many episodes of this podcast so far, have to do with a contemplation and a certain mindset that corresponds to a certain energy alignment, which also sort of corresponds with mathematic proofs, sort of in a certain respect, like mathematic proofs. It's like spiritual science to a certain extent, which is like an unprovable, but at the same time significant and powerful mathematics process and mathematics communication process and like mathematics language to a certain degree. Spiritual finance is like a spiritual language to a certain degree because we're trying to align. And every single little podcast that we've had so far in the past has been like a little bit of a spiritual finance proof, or it's been like a spiritual science proof, or it's been like a mathematics proof to a certain extent, because ultimately we're using logic in the logic of words, the essence of words, the essence of the logic and the mathematics behind the words that correspond to the essence of what's being strung together to be able to develop a message which corresponds to an outcome, which corresponds to in essence the hopeful value that corresponds to each given sort of podcast ultimately at the same time. And then there's like a spiritual science that's trying to equal to that ultimate equation, which ultimately corresponds to spiritual finance, which is mathematics corresponding to energy that corresponds to more or less the universe and the solar system and the spirit. Ultimately, it's things that you feel like are right and feel things that in the heart feel right. It's called heart mathematics, mathematics. I saw that earlier, the word, I forgot which one comes first, but nonetheless, it's heart mathematics. And this is what corresponds to spiritual finance and the essence of looking deeper into this, and also trying to align with quantum computing, because quantum computing is the new essence of computing in the future. It has to do with randomness, but at the same time, hopefully more so efficiency. So ultimately, the whole purpose of this podcast, I guess, is ultimately by mentioning that in the corresponding sort of full circle respect to the essence of spiritual science and the essence of spiritual mathematics and heart mathematics in essence, the Institute of Heart Mathematics in essence, is ultimately that in essence, just by delineation and sort of inference and conclusion for all of these instances of focal logic, that ultimately the purpose is that by focusing on this essence of this mindset of spiritual finance, that it relates to and corresponds to the essence of holding matter in place, which increases and enhances the biological age, expansion, an experience of the body and the cells of the body aligning with the ability for matter to hold information in place in a certain alignment with this wisdom that corresponds to spiritual finance and the study of spiritual finance and the study of spiritual finance methodology and the study of heart mathematics, which corresponds to the vibrational frequencies and internal frequencies and external frequencies that correspond to the essence of these types of business music, which helps people to align with their purposes in life, because when they align with their purposes in life and they fulfill or attempt to fulfill problems as entrepreneurs in the world, that they stay in this frame of existence, they stay in this focus, they stay in this mindset of alignment with consistent pursuit with their lifetimes, and ultimately being able to harness the best aspect of biological aging, which in essence is to be able to bring down biological aging, because their matter is aligned with light and their light organization is aligned with information, and that is holding matter in place in essence based on the Heart Mathematics Institute of this ethereal blueprint YouTube video that I was watching earlier actually is mentioning this specific thing that I'm talking about right now. And so nonetheless, the full circle mindset is that in essence holding this mindset and holding this light in place and in line for the long term, for the length of life, has to do with developing an entrepreneurship process, and at the same time the corresponding actual interest to this entrepreneurship process is that you love the process, you get the joy and the enjoyment from this process, and that's what you actually get from this, is a happiness reward. In essence, it's not about a money reward. The entrepreneurship process, the alignment process, is a happiness reward, and in essence that also corresponds to a longevity in life. But that happiness reward is the actual reward. It's not about money. Realistically, entrepreneurship is not about money. It's about happiness after all. And so ultimately finding the alignment with this corresponding alignment with cells that align with your happiness and align with the corresponding industries that correspond to the potential that you could get paid for the work that you're doing if you continue to stay on course and continue to stay on track and continue to take the steps forward to be able to align with an ikigai entrepreneurship path. An ikigai entrepreneurship path, which is a word that sort of stands for varying aspects of developing an entrepreneurship process from within, from aspects of life that you are enjoying, that also corresponds to a market and market potential for you to eventually potentially be able to get paid from this entrepreneurship path. But the purpose of this entrepreneurship path is to literally want to walk it for free and literally just have the ability to be able to own that process and use your free time to be able to own that process and scale that process and give back to the world and give the ability to be able to add value to markets, which also corresponds to adding value to problems in the world, which corresponds to adding value to solving problems in the world, which corresponds to greater interests such as the global philanthropy energy grid, because it is philanthropy. It's aligned with philanthropy. It's solving problems, which is philanthropic after all. So after all, if you're aligned with doing that for free, it's what not only causes fulfillment, but it also causes the greatest potential to get the greatest payment in actual potential monetary reward. But you have to keep doing it for free like you don't care if you get paid. And that's one of the only actual ways to try to actually get paid, because ultimately you never know where the payment potential in line, the potential payment line in the process can conceptually happen, because you have to align with the marketplace at the right place at the right time with the right tools and such things. And you can try to optimize that process, but it's ideal. And it's the nature of the spirit and the nature of the spirit way. And it's the nature of spirit alignment and the nature of longevity and biological longevity for humans to exist longer, I suppose, in the essence of this corresponding message, that it's about doing it for free, to be able to do it for happiness and enjoyment and experience that longevity through that life, biological longevity that's given by the appearance and ability for biological age to be stretched out by following this happiness path that could conceptually also yield money. It could conceptually yield money, although it is not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to get monetary energy from elsewhere and then just walk the path forever if you must, because it's the happiness path. And you could get paid from it, and you could get paid a lot. You could get paid a lot if you're helping to solve big problems, big problems. You could get paid a lot, but you're supposed to do it for free. You're supposed to want to do it for free. And that's just sort of the mechanics. That's the mechanics and the quantum mechanics to extending and expanding the essence of spiritual finance into longevity, as sort of the conclusion for today's podcast. Thanks again. Ding Tech, buy Peace Buy, Ding Tech, Change for Games, Ding Tech, Change for Games Studios, buy Peace Buy.